6:30.
In that case, I'd like to call the meeting to order, please. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, could we please start off with a roll call?
Supervisor Alisapian,
Here.
Trustee Dean Morelli,
Here.
Trustee Greg Bickus,
Present.
Trustee Karen Johnson,
Here.
Trustee Denise Salvino,
Here.
Highway Commissioner Jim Louch,
Here.
Collector Jessica Kennedy,
Here.
Attorney Gary Mueller.
Present.
Thank you. First item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes for the monthly meeting of October 10th, 2023. I will need a motion to approve the October 10 minutes.
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion by Karen Johnson
Second.
and a second by Greg Bickus. Any questions on the minutes? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is the bills in the amount of $111,212.29. I will need a motion to pay the bills.
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion by Karen Johnson.
I'll second.
I have a second by Denise Salvino. Any questions on the bills? Hearing none. Madam Clerk, can I please have a roll call?
Sapien,
Yes.
Morelli,
Yes.
Bickus,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Salvino.
Yes.
Motion carries. Do we have any citizens wishing to address the board tonight in regards to the road and bridge fund?
Can I please see the citizens that are on Zoom there?
Oh.
Thank you. Thank you.
There appears to be nobody wishing to address the board. Moving on to the Highway Commissioner's report. Commissioner Louch, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Good evening, Board. Just a couple of updates. Lawrence Avenue will be closed from Connor to Bruce Road. City of Joliet's upgrading the lift station there. It'll include all the components of the lift station, the well, electrical components, generator, the general piping infrastructure that connects to it. Then when they're finished with that, they're going to continue down through the water mains throughout Fairmont and eventually get around to the water tower, which is in our yard. And they'll be open bids for that in the next couple of weeks and then eventually take the water tower down. So it's quite a lot going on from years in the water board and what they're doing. Other than that, our daily focus has been leaf pickup and the restoration of the sidewalks, landscaping around the sidewalks that we've done in Bonnie Brae area.
Awesome. Thank you,
That's
Commissioner.
all I got.
Thank you. I don't have any other business. Do you have any questions or anything else from the trustees?
Jim, so that, I see here, Oxy Construction was handling the sidewalk for that being in Bonnie Brae.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else? Okay. Hearing none, I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn the Road and Bridge Fund meeting.
I'll make that motion.
A motion by Denise Salvino,
Second.
second by Karen Johnson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, Road and Bridge Fund meeting is adjourned. Moving on now to the Town Fund meeting. We have several sets of minutes that need to be approved. I'm going to try to swipe all three of them with one motion. So we do have the monthly meeting minutes of October 10th, 2023, as well as special meeting minutes of October 30th, 2023, as well as the release of executive session minutes for November 9th, 2021, and November 1st, 2022. I will need a motion to approve all sets of minutes.
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion by Karen Johnson.
I'll second.
I have a second by Denise Salvino. Do we have any questions on any of the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to the next item on our agenda is approval of bills in the amount of $217,087.46. I will need a motion to pay the bills.
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion by Karen Johnson,
Second.
second by Greg Dickus. Any questions on the bills? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please have a roll call.
Johnson?
Yes.
Morelli?
Yes.
Dickus?
Yes.
Salvino?
Yes.
Sapien?
Yes. Any citizens wishing to address the board in regards to the town fund tonight? Hearing none, moving on to the clerk's report. Madam Clerk?
All right, thank you, Supervisor. The clerk's office has submitted our hours for the early voting for the general primary election in 2024. The general primary election day is on Tuesday, March 19th, 2024. Early voting will be available at the Lockport Township Government Building from the dates of Monday, March 4th, 2024, through Saturday, March 16th, 2024. Once I have received confirmation on my selected hours from Will County, I will announce our official general primary early voting schedule. On Wednesday, October 25th, 2023, I hosted a meeting in my conference room for United Way of Will County and the fellow partners involved in our Diaper Depot program. We discussed the ways to improve and modernize the current program and came up with some great ideas. Additionally, I'm looking forward to being able to expand my partnership with the program to eventually begin including expansion into providing dental hygiene supplies for those in need. As always, please join in on the latest text or email information notifications by signing up on our Lockport Township website homepage. This can be found under alerts and notifications. Additionally, feel free to call us at the clerk's office or stop in. Sign-up slips are available at the township to fill out if you would like our assistance with this. Stay informed on our events and alerts with this easy method. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Do we have any comments or suggestions from the trustees tonight? All right, hearing none, I'll move on to our approval for town fund tonight. So, I have here on list of approvals, Resolution 2023-8 to support application for community block grant funding for the Riley Avenue Drainage Improvement Project. You all should have a copy of the resolution in your packet. So this is a project that the Highway Commissioner, the clerk, and I have been discussing in the past few weeks. So I will go over this at a high level, but Commissioner and Clerk, if there's any information you'd like to add or you'd like to interrupt me at any time, please do so. So like I said, we've been discussing this project over the past several weeks, and my understanding is this was originally something that was proposed and started a few years ago. I think it was back in 2021. But essentially, there is opportunity to improve drainage on Riley Avenue, which is located in the Fairmont community, and the county and land use has determined that it is one of the areas most suitable for improvement. And so while they themselves don't have jurisdiction to do all the work themselves, what they've opted to do is have us take on some of the administrative work. So for example, take it out to bid, etc., with help from the clerk. But then in terms of funding, they would actually give us a grant to fully cover everything. And so there was actually a motion to receive these grants back in May of this year. But the land use actually needed a resolution to be passed, not just a motion. A motion was not sufficient. So we're back here to approve this resolution. Commissioner or Clerk, is there anything you'd like to add on?
So once, if it gets approval, then there will be an agreement, and then we'll be able to see funds prior to the end of the month.
Yeah.
So that was a fast track, which is great for everybody.
The bids go out, I think the engineering company's been put out the bids for the contractor to do the actual work. The bonds will go out through the highway department to protect the township, something like so.
Does anyone have any questions on the resolution?
Not really on the resolution, just clarify, so an engineer will go out there and kind of see what the scope of work is, make a decision and put it out to work for his contractor, whatever he decides.
My understanding is that the county's going to have the engineering company come out and they'll be the general of the contract. they'll oversee the work. I'm not quite sure how the bid structure is going to work, but
They're going to provide the bid packets for those that are interested to pick up.
And then I have the more thorough scope of work packet they provided, and I'm happy to forward that to everybody. But essentially it was, the county's been wanting to work on this for quite some time, and they just don't have the jurisdiction to do everything themselves, which is they're required to kind of have us do a little bit of the work, which is some of the administration. But in terms of all of the heavy lifting, it's all the county.
I just got one more time. It's kind of like phase 2 of the flood study that went on some years ago. Some of the hot spots have moved, the areas where I would say need more attention. But it's improved. It's going to be improved drainage, so good deal.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on the resolution?
There's just one typo in the title. Make improvements, just like the letters first.
It didn't come from me.
We'll be sure.
But we could fix it.
We'll be sure to amend that. All right, hearing no other questions or comments, can I please get a motion to approve the resolution 2023-8 as amended with that minor change in the title?
I'll make that motion.
A motion by Ken Johnson,
Second.
second by Greg Pickus. Madam Clerk, can I please get a roll call?
Morelli?
Yes.
Sapien?
Yes.
Pickus?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
Salvino?
Yes.
Resolution is passed. Moving on, we have no more approvals for the town meeting tonight, but we do have a good amount of updates. So moving on to the building report, light post updates. So I think I sent everyone here an email regarding a new light post that we will be having installed towards the entrance of the driveway here at the township. As you all know, and I'm sure as you probably saw coming into the meeting tonight, it gets very dark out there. My office was in contact with ComEd and negotiated a good price for about a little over $2,000 to install a light post up there, which is considerably less at other places where it's estimated $55,000. So I did sign off on that late last week after I sent you all an email. The timeline is about 6 to 8 weeks, so hopefully before Christmas we'll have some more lighting. New garage update. So we did have a special meeting to discuss the new garage on October 30th. I want to give everyone an update that I did speak several times with United Architects, specifically Bob, regarding these revisions. And as of last Friday, I formally submitted the changes, the revisions to the drawings. He couldn't give me a timeline, but they will be coming out hopefully sometime before the end of the year to go out to bid. So they're formally submitted, and I will give you all updates as I receive them. All right, moving on to new business. I want to give everyone an update regarding the mental health project we approved when we partnered with the fire district. You all should have received a draft flyer in your packets. But to give everyone an update, the vast majority of the work on the back end and front end is done. We have the website up. This is actually a working QR code if anyone would like to scan it. This is a flyer that the fire district opted to make and will be printing. But as you can see, we have both logos. We also then have a step-by-step process of how someone would reach out to the organizations to receive therapy appointments through funding from the township. So we do have a launch date of December 1st. Again, everything is done. The reason we chose December 1st is the fire department has actually chosen to hire someone to cover this work full-time. Given that their district also kind of overlaps with other townships that are also working on this project, it made sense for them to hire someone as opposed to kind of divide among their workers. So they need a few weeks to kind of onboard and transition that person, but we should go live by December 1st, where then people will be able to scan the QR code or reach out to the fire department for a voucher. I reiterate, no money from the money that we reserved has been used. And hopefully we'll have a bigger update in December. Moving on to HR. So, have an update regarding the HR handbook. Again, we had a special meeting to discuss changes To the handbook, I did finish the edits to the handbook recently. Now, the more intricate changes regarding some of the more legal structures, for example, our harassment policy, social media policy, etc., I will be working on with our attorney to write those in. But otherwise, the handbook is done, and I'm hoping to have it, to get it approved at the December meeting. That way we can roll this out at the beginning of the new year. Two more things I want to add on to new business. So one is very recent actually, and it's regarding, I know we discussed at the special meeting regarding the HR handbook, about the possibility of looking into hiring or contracting some sort of HR firm to take on some of our HR work related to like payroll, PTO tracking, etc. So the reason it's not on the agenda is because I literally got off a bunch of meetings today. But just to give everyone just a brief overview, and we can discuss this more in depth at a later meeting, but the two main, I guess you can call them HR organizations that townships tend to work with are your very common ADP payroll, and then the second one is one that DuPage Township actually has called Paylocity, which is a technology company. So just to give everyone, put it in perspective, for 40 people, there is a basic and an intermediate package, and for ADP, if we estimate about 40 people, so this accounts for everyone in the township, including the highway department, a basic package would be about $10,400 a year. And so this includes automatic payroll, PTO tracking, and then if the office leader wishes, location tracking or clocking in and out. So it's $10,400 for basic. For an intermediate, it would be a little over $13,000 a year. And then if we look at Paylocity, for ADP, I did give a yearly estimate, but what they would do is they would charge us per payroll period. So if we would need to pay some sort of processing fees, and they gave me the estimate of how much it would cost per year. For Paylocity, they have an intermediate and I guess you can call it an advanced package. Theirs is a monthly subscription, and neither of them have contracts. But the intermediate package, which would include payroll, PTO tracking, and automation into the bill list and our ledger, would be $4,300 for the year. The advanced would then be $6,200 for the year. Just to give everyone a basic update on what this would look like.
Do any of those include like HR,
Like a
hotline for us?
So that's what I asked too. So both of them include an HR hotline phone number, but none in that they would tackle like employee grievances or complaints. It would mainly, the HR hotline would be used as in if you needed help filling out some sort of form, if that makes sense, or any updates regarding to like HR law. So I do still need to look into finding some sort of firm if we can outsource HR grievances, if that makes sense. I have called Twarma HR to see if they have any suggestions, but I'm still waiting on a phone call from them. But, yeah. I'm not going to take any, I guess, final steps with any of these companies. I wanted to let you all know. I am going to continue to look at, I guess a firm where we could contract for HR grievances. But if anyone has any suggestions, I'm very open to hearing them, because I do believe it's also important.
And maybe we can get some information at the conference too down there.
Yeah, that's a good point. So, but I just want to give everyone an update to let you know that I am actively working on this. It's just, the last meeting I had was actually today at 5. So, okay. One final thing in regards to new, I guess you can call it new business. So I think everyone at this point has heard of the unfortunate news that happened at Lockport Central late last week. Unfortunately, their ceiling caved in, and so the majority of their student population is moving to virtual learning, but there's a set of students that still need to take classes in person. And so the school reached out to my office and asked if they'd be able to host classes here during the day. The location and just the setup worked out perfectly. And so we agreed. And thankfully, other groups that host in the building, like Bingo, Meals on Wheels, were very understanding, and so we'll have classes being hosted in the community room and in both conference rooms every day for the next several weeks or months. End date to be determined, but we are happy to just help out the school in their time of need.
And what hours are they here?
Sure. They're here from 8:30 to 1:45. So usually by 2 p.m. they're all gone. Okay. Next, we have upcoming events. We have quite a few events coming up. The first is the peaceful ceremony that's happening tomorrow morning here outside of the office. The same day, we have the Veterans Dinner happening in the evening from 5 to 7 at Mistwood Golf Club. We then, the city then has Christmas in the Square at Central Square on the 25th, which is a Saturday after Thanksgiving. Now, that's not our event, but it is an event that we help sponsor, so I just wanted to remind everyone about it. The Children's Winter event, which is a township event, is happening on Wednesday, December 13th, from 5 to 7:30 here at the township office. And then I think probably the most fun out of all of them is we have a special meeting on the levy next week, just as a reminder, Wednesday, November 15th at 5 p.m. in this very room. Other minor thing is the annual TOI conference is happening starting this weekend. Trustee Johnson, Trustee Salvino, and myself will be attending, and it will be from Sunday, November 12th to Tuesday, November 14th. Old business, past events, the trunk or treat happened on Thursday, October 26th. Here at the office, even though it was a little dark and rainy, we still had a really great turnout. And I thank everyone that was able to come, and I think it was a great event, and excited to see the next one. And then I already mentioned the TOI conference. I have nothing for meetings and correspondence. Any last questions or comments from the board?
Alex, I just had a couple things just touch base on. As far as the school holding the class, do we have any functions planned that it's going to interfere with?
We had a few things, and again, this is where we spoke with some of the organizations. I think, so there was bingo that happens 3 days a week, but I will say both the Park District and the bingo players were very understanding, even though it happened literally, we found out literally last minute. In terms of events, I know, the food pantry was having their holiday party middle of December. We let them know, they're very understanding, they're having it in another location. And then the Rotary Club usually does their food baskets here, but they're okay with just moving it over to the garage. So, as far as we know, the school said that they are hoping to be here by middle of December. But again, we let them know they can be here as long as needed, but they gave a timeline about middle of December.
Okay, I know we've had issues in the past with noise maybe affecting some offices in the building, and I don't know if this is going to make things worse.
Sure. No, that's a good point, and to that I will say that I called each of the offices directly, including both the assessor's office and the clerk's office, and both were very understanding. But yeah, as soon as I heard, it all happened in a very quick time frame,
Right.
but we were lucky that everyone was very understanding.
Right, it's good that we can help out.
They're pretty quiet.
Okay. On another note, talk about this HR.
Sure.
With payroll, PTO time and such. I mean, our bookkeeper right now is responsible for those, correct? I mean, basically,
Sure, so our bookkeeper is in charge of the payroll, and right now they use QuickBooks. It is a very manual process, takes about a day and a half to 2 days. The PTO tracking, that's where it gets a little iffy, because our township administrator is in charge of manually keeping track, and the policy before we had the handbook is that almost all of the PTO, comp time, et cetera, carries through indefinitely. And so this is where I think modernizing at least the PTO part would certainly help to keep track.
right, I can see some of that being beneficial, but as far as the payroll, then are we going to need a bookkeeper?
Yeah, so the bookkeeper's sole job is not just payroll. Payroll is, again, duties for maybe a day and a half, 2 days out of the entire month. The bookkeeper works on paying the bills and keeping track of other expenses. So if anything, it would decrease the amount of work they do on payroll and make it more efficient and we'd be more responsible, but there's certainly other work that they could do. And again, just to reiterate, I'm not sworn to these. This was me looking it up and bringing it up to the board. If we decide that this, what we have now is fine.
No,
then
we had
can-
talked about looking into it, and appreciate that. You know.
Yeah.
Some of it makes sense, so for sure.
What I will say is, one thing that I liked, especially regarding Paylocity that they mentioned, is that they're used to working with government entities, and so they know the process about working with QuickBooks. So one of the things that they have is that they actually integrate their software with a lot of third parties, including QuickBooks. So, you know, even though employees will get paid automatically and they'll be able to submit their own time off request, it actually integrates with QuickBooks where it would actually help to complete the bill list and the budget for the upcoming meeting. So it is very nice and very fancy. Again, it does come at a cost, and I'm letting the board know. Just because I know budget season is coming up, and so this is something we could potentially add into the proposed budget. Another thing I will say is that even though we are 4 separate offices, this would be enough to cover all the staff for all 4 offices, given that the supervisor's office is in charge of the payroll. Now, every office can opt to do their own time off, right, PTO tracking. I know it would be helpful for my office, but if you know, the other 3 offices want to do their own, have their own system for PTO, maybe they'd like to keep their own system, that works too.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, can I entertain a motion to adjourn the town fund meeting?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second. I have a motion by Annie Salvino, a second by Karen Johnston. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Town fund meeting is adjourned. Moving on now to the senior fund meeting. First thing on the agenda is the approval of minutes for the monthly meeting of October 10th, 2023. I will need a motion to approve those minutes.
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion by Karen Johnson,
Second.
second by Greg Vickis. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. Next is we do have bills in the amount of $29,138.27. I will need a motion to pay the bills.
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion by Karen Johnson,
Second.
second by Greg Vickis. Any questions on the bills? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, could I please have a roll call?
Salvino,
Yes?
Vickis,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Morelli,
Yes.
Sapien.
Yes. Motion carries. Do we have any citizens wishing to address the board tonight in regards to the senior fund? Moving on to bus report and new business. So if everyone checks their packets, you'll see that I included an updated version of the expanded bus report. Now, this bus report is very similar, if not close to the same as the expanded bus report I included back in July. Just some minor updates to it, but my recommendations are the same in that our bus volumes are still steadily growing, and my recommendation is that for the future, we keep the same bus size. Now, if you look in the very last page where I do have the tables and the graph, we will see the data for October, which shows that in October we had 516 trips for an average of 24.6 rides per day. This brings our total rides for the year to 5,061, which is more than the past 3 years. And this is still approximately 80.1% of the rides we were completing before COVID. So, this averages to 506 rides per month so far. With that data, with having said all of that, I do have here up for discussion is the approval to purchase new senior buses. Now, we did briefly discuss this at the special meeting regarding the new garage, But back during COVID, there was an order for the new senior buses. And they actually just, they actually just came in a few weeks ago, middle of October. So with these senior buses, if everyone recalls, is that they were originally proposed to us at the cost of about $60,000 each, and then they increased to about $120,000. This time they're down to $112,000 each, for a total of about $225,000. Now, the bus company did reach out, and they've been, I will say, breathing down my neck that they want to hear a decision very soon, but I asked that if the price changed, they could at least wait until we discussed as a board regarding next steps. Now, there is a very long wait list for people who would like to purchase these buses. We're even ahead of the line. We're even ahead of Pace Bus in terms of new buses. So, in terms of the status of our current buses, is we've owned them and we've had them since 2017. So they're about 6 years. From conversations with my administrator who's worked in this business for several years, the standard time to replace buses is about 4 years, and our buses currently have a little over 120,000 miles each. Now, I did speak with the bus company, and they said considering the long wait list and the big demand for these, the backlog, is that if we opted to not purchase senior buses, it would be at least 3 to 4 years to purchase new ones. So if we wait 3 or 4 years, the buses will then be about 9 to 10 years old by the time we can replace them. So the buses, if we were to purchase them, are nearly identical to the ones we have now. I say nearly because the description, everything is the same, it is just a different manufacturer. So other than that, everything is the same. I will say that we do have a line item currently in the budget of $120,000 solely to purchase a senior bus. And the bus company I spoke with, when I spoke with them, I asked them if it was okay if we wanted to, let's say, purchase a bus now and then pay the rest when we pass the next budget. And they were fine with that. So technically, we do have authority to buy them now, but I didn't want to do that until I spoke with the board. So with that, I'll open it up for comments from the board.
I know we at some point had an attorney kind of look into that contract that our previous supervisor had signed with this company. And I know we put a lot of trust in the supervisor and his administrator since they handle it, on a day-to-day basis. The contract was kind of basically confusing because the bus manufacturer, provider did state that, this was a binding contract and, couldn't be broken. However, now they want quite a bit more. And I know we've talked that, and I have myself contacted other bus providers who said that, there's no way you're going to get those buses for what we had signed that contract for. And I don't know if the attorney's got any kind of suggestion or just say it is what it is. We're going to have to probably bite the bullet. And, I don't know if there's any negotiation with them as far as, what the contract previously said. You're saying that they are giving you a small discount. Is that you went from 120 something down to 112?
Yes, that's not, I don't want to take credit for negotiating that. That was just the new price they gave us,
They gave us.
112.
So
yeah, and we do have this written in a contract. So, depending on what happens today, I may need to sign it, but it's all written down in the contract, which I haven't signed yet.
So that's the bottom line.
Yes.
$112
Yes.
per bus.
Yes, and considering that they wanted to hear a decision ASAP, and there is allegedly a long list of other people waiting to buy it, I would think that there isn't any wiggle room on the price of the
Right. I feel it's a necessity. It's a service we provide, and there's probably no way around that contract and or the cost. And with the way things, he's saying as far as if we do balk on it and try to get them next year, there's probably not a good chance we're going to do that. So I would be for going ahead and purchasing the 2 buses. That's my take.
I did want to ask, is there a trade-in of the current buses happening, or will
What
the
happens
township
with our
sell them
current-
outright?
Sure, sure.
Just so I know for notes here.
Sure, I mean, there is a trade-in option. I wasn't given an
Okay.
estimate,
Okay.
but there is a possibility to trade in our old buses, but I don't have an estimate as to how much they would give us.
And I think you said before, even if we say, yes, we want them now, we're not getting them right away, right? Or are we getting them right away now?
So for these buses? So the
Yes.
buses, they've been manufactured and everything. I think they're in Kentucky, so they would be delivered in our hands by the end of the spring. But we have, yes. And that was a solid date, I was sure. Spring.
And so do we pay for them now or on delivery?
So they wanted payment now, but I asked them if they'd be flexible in payment, and could we pay for one of the buses now, given that we have a line item, and the rest of it, could we pay for it once we pass the new budget? And they agreed to that. Like they said they were
But
okay
we
with that.
complete the order, it's just the payment terms.
Correct. The payment terms would be different.
And when would they give us an estimate of the trade-in?
I'm not sure. I mean, I could call them tomorrow.
Is there any benefit if there's other organizations that might be in need of buses or bus service, of a donation of those buses? That would be beneficial to us in some way?
I get, when you mean donation of buses, do you mean our older buses or these?
The older buses.
Oh, sure. I mean.
The older bus, because you know how you go to take your car and to be traded in,
Sure.
and normally they don't really give you much. You're either better off looking on the open market yourself or finding an alternate
Sure.
way that it can benefit you.
Right, I mean, I'm sure that's something we could definitely explore in terms of if we donate this to another organization, or I guess if we decide to sell them ourselves. Again, I think.
Jim, I saw a lot of times for the highway departments, they sell their vehicles through a system, through
Surplus them,
townships.
declare them surplus, and then, yeah, there's a township magazine, I think, that goes out to
Perspective.
Right.
the, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and there's always a possibility, we can knock around, maybe keeping one of them, just in case, for ourselves, I don't know.
That's what I was gonna say, you may want to keep them, you never know.
Right.
They're in decent shape, right? I mean,
Yeah, they haven't been, that's what I want to say, is they haven't been giving us any major issues lately, right? I mean, you know, a couple wear and tear here or there, a little bit of minor maintenance, but nothing, no big issues that have been coming up. So, I think my office's thoughts is just, you know, they have 120,000 miles, so maybe they work today, but maybe tomorrow they won't be working. And then again, the idea is if we say no, but then we order them in a couple of months, they won't be available for a few years.
I think going forward and doing payment plan, like you said, we've got it budgeted for one bus, paid that, and next year's budget, line item for the other one.
Yeah, it's too important and needed of a service for our senior community to take a chance.
So I would agree, and it seems that there's a few other members of the board that are also in agreement. So unless there's any other questions, I'd like to entertain a motion to purchase 2 new senior buses.
I'll make that motion.
A motion by Karen Johnson,
I'll second.
and a second by Denise Salvino. Madam Clerk, could I please have a roll call?
Pirelli,
Yes.
Zapian,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Salvino,
Yes.
Vickers.
yes.
Motion carries.
I think Linda checked one thing, and I don't know if this still applies. I know there was some discussion, the reason that we would get the leases instead of purchasing them before is because of the requirement of anything, I think now over 30,000 has to go to bid if we buy it or whatever, or, you know, in purchasing things, and that this was somehow the company that went through arranging the leases did some kind of paperwork where it wasn't necessary when we went through the leases. But I just want to know if has somebody checked the law on what we can buy, that we can just buy these, or is there some other kind of something that we have to document or do for this kind of expenditure out of the government.
I mean, I think that's something, reach out to the attorney, we'll chat regarding this tomorrow, but I guess my understanding, having us as an office done this before, because we did purchase these buses later after they were leased to us, and then we do have them in the budget, we do have a line item in the budget for this, and then it would go into the budget, which we'll vote on later. My understanding is yes, but we can double check before signing off. Because I know there are situations in which you can purchase items that don't need to go out to bid for other reasons. So we can check.
Didn't that come up before, that they do that work? Do you remember
The
that?
leasing company?
Yeah, that they do that work for us, is that,
When we were leasing them, but not necessarily when we were buying.
but not for purchase, okay,
Yeah.
all right.
And that purchase was really a buyout of the lease, so it might be technically something different than just an outright purchase of equipment. I just don't know. And I know we've raised those questions before, but I don't know that anybody has looked into it.
We'll bring it up and look over this tomorrow. Because I know there's also other government entities that were looking to purchase this, so I'm sure other folks have the same question.
Yeah, it's just a matter of what we might need to document or whatever.
Sure. Okay. Noted. I have no old business. Any questions or comments from the board? I guess one final little thing I wanted to bring up to the board is I have been in discussions with folks from the Innovation Center. I know Trustee Salvino and I recently had a tour there last week to explore possible opportunities for us to partner with them in the future. I will say they were nice enough to offer tours to anyone else at the township if they would be interested in taking a tour at the Innovation Center. The current timeline is that the center will supposedly open in January of next year, but I was also told in July it was going to be open in October, and they keep pushing it back. So, Trustee Salvino, I don't know if you had any thoughts on the tour?
Yeah, it's a pretty amazing building and a great place for kind of one-stop shopping for seniors to be able to access a bunch of services, as well as has a nice place to just walk around, grab a cup of coffee, visit with their friends, take some salsa classes or whatever they might be offering. And I think it's in a great location as well, kind of in the center of their rural county senior groups that they service. So I can see a good opportunity for us to partnership with them in some way, and having some sort of presence on the other side of the bridge for a great deal of our people that are, we're at the far end as it is of our township boundaries. So
Yeah,
I highly encourage if you can go take a tour of it. It's pretty impressive.
Location again.
Location is the old Target on Weber in Romeoville. So right around, what is that, South? I forget, South Creek, yeah, between, closer to Renwick, kind of, by the Coles.
Airport Road.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Airport Road and over.
it's in a pretty good location on the other side of the bridge, and I would agree with Trustee Salvino, it is going to be a very impressive location once it does finally open up, and it's supposed to be, I think, the only location of its kind in the state. So a lot of really cool things they showed us, and again, they were nice enough to offer tours to the rest of the board. So if anyone is interested, please let me know. They are only during business hours, which is exactly the one little setback, but if you are interested, please let me know and we can get that set up. Cool. All right. Unless anyone has any final questions, can I entertain a motion to adjourn the senior fund meeting?
I'll make that motion.
A motion by Karen Johnson,
Second.
second by Greg Dickus. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Senior fund meeting is adjourned. All right, for our last meeting of the night, we have general assistance. First item on the agenda is approval of minutes for the monthly meeting of October 20th, 2023. I will need a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion by Denise Salvino,
Second.
and a second by Greg Biggis. Any questions on the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to the bills, we have bills in the amount of $1,146.95. I will need a motion to pay the bills.
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion by Karen Johnson,
Second.
second by Greg Biggis. Any questions on the bills?
What is the WCCCC?
That's the Will County Center for Community Concerns. So I think both the town fund and the general assistance fund, we have line items where I guess we sponsor or support nonprofit organizations. And so for general assistance, we have a line item for $5,000 that goes directly for Will County Center for Community Concerns. Given that Will County Center for Community Concerns is a county nonprofit organization that supports the needy.
Okay, I just didn't know.
It's a mouthful in terms of abbreviation. Okay.
I mean, I'm glad to see that our donations are actually higher than our administration in this account for this month. Good job.
There's actually a pretty large update on GA that I'll go over in a bit. So, yes, any other questions on the bills? All right, hearing none, Madam Clerk, please have a roll call.
Sapien,
Yes.
Morelli,
Yes.
Biggis,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Salvino.
Yes.
Motion carries. Do we have any citizens wishing to address the board tonight in regards to general assistance? Hearing none, we'll move on to the GA report. So, a couple of documents to go over. I won't go over them, all of them, in too much detail, given that it's a good amount to go over. But first, there is a sheet in your packet that is called GA Tracking. It's labeled GA Tracking at the top. Date is October 2023. So this is a basic overview of what a GA report would look like. So for this month, October was actually a little bit busier of a month, given that one, it's getting a little colder, and two, is that LIHEAP, which is an organization that helps support folks with their utility bills, specifically gas and their light bills. We've been hosting them in the building, and so usually when we host LIHEAP kind of charities, we tend to get more people, we tend to have more cases where people come in, mainly because they are not eligible for LIHEAP or they do learn about LIHEAP. LIHEAP then refers them or lets them know that the township offers a similar service. So we did have a good amount of people inquire or ask about, assistance. So we had 60 in total. That includes 60 people in person, 43 phone calls, 11 emails. And again, those inquiries are just people asking, one, to see if they qualify, two, asking for an application, three, reviewing that application and going over it themselves, etc. Of those 60 people, it narrows down to 9 general assistance applications that were submitted. 2 of them were approved, 6 of them were denied, and 1 of them, at the time the agenda was uploaded, was in progress, but has also since been denied, for a total of 2 approved, 7 denied. In terms of a breakdown in finances, it is in the updated budget sheet, but for the 2 that were approved, it was $450.80 in fuel and $189.80 for a light bill. So that is it for the GA report for October. The next, I have 2 other documents. And again, I won't go over them thoroughly, but I do encourage everyone here to read through them. But the documents are, 1, labeled General Assistance Cost Benefit Analysis. The second being, everyone received an updated copy, but it's a color print version. It's called General Assistance Operational Flow. The original version that was in black and white was cut off when it was being scanned. So I instead handed everyone a color version when they walked in. There should be a version at everyone's desk. If not, we do have an extra one. There we go.
I have one here.
So basically, I sent everyone a fairly lengthy email last night in regards to an update regarding the topic we discussed in executive session last month. I won't go over that topic, but as an update is that we do and did have a vacancy in general assistance. So for general assistance from October 13th until about a week ago, I myself took on general assistance. I will say it was a bit of a learning curve, and it's on top of my other responsibilities. It's a very demanding job, but it did allow me to learn a lot more about the operational flow and how it works. And so the flow diagram is there in case you'd like to learn. But the end result is that general assistance on a month like October boils down to about 40 to 45 hours per month. So if we average it to a per week basis, it's not enough for a full-time job, but it's also not a negligible amount. It's about 20 hours a week. So I have here, and again, the following document called cost-benefit analysis, where I break down how much it would theoretically cost for general assistance. So there's two options. One is we hire someone to cover general assistance. The second is an option I briefly mentioned at last month's meeting, which is to outsource our applications to another township, which in this case is DuPage Township. So if you look at the cost-benefit analysis, if we have someone in-house working on applications, it comes down to about $787.50. If we outsource our applications, it would come down to about $805.50. Quick note that if we do outsource our applications, it would only be the application portion of the GA process. We have to do all the administrative work up front. We receive the application, either take it in person or email it to DuPage Township. They make the decision of yes or no, this is approved, give it back to us. We then do the rest of that administrative work, which is sending out the decision letter, writing up a voucher, sending out the check, completing the bill list, etc. So the costs for the two are about the same. I will also say that one consideration is that if we do outsource this to DuPage Township, and there is an interview portion for general assistance, is that resident would then need to travel to the DuPage Township office, which depending on where you're located in the township is roughly 25 minutes, not including for traffic and weather. So another little update is that, so again, for about 2 weeks when this position became vacant, I did general assistance myself. I then spoke with the DuPage Township supervisor about what an option would look like regarding an IGA. The supervisor also let me know, they referred me to folks that had previously worked for the Joliet government that have worked in general assistance. And so what I did and what we've done for the past week and a half is I temporarily contracted hired someone to work on GA. Now that person, two things. One, signed a contract with us, which our attorney reviewed, that they will only be here until November 22nd, which is when DuPage would approve the IGA. And then second, they're only working at the township for 3 hours a day, which is what we estimated would take, how long GA would take, and so far has been right on the nose. And then third, their pay is $18 an hour, which is how much the previous GA person was making before any changes. So again, it's all set in writing. Now, because there's a contract, there is no expectation that this temporary worker will work with us full time. My suggestion to the board is the following. I suggest that we send out a public hiring process to hire someone for GA. Now, it's very clear that we can't have someone working in GA full time because there's not enough work. Now, I previously sent the board an email that we are looking to fill 3 part-time vacancies. One is the senior bus dispatcher, second is maintenance, and the third is what we could call community engagement, which is working at events like the senior event, etc. All 3 of which take about 15 to 20 hours. So what I propose is that we combine this community vacancy with the GA vacancy and make it one full-time position, because otherwise we haven't been attracting any candidates to the part-time position. So what I propose is we make a public hiring process for that position. And then, again, that'll take about 2 weeks. And I still propose, though, that we vote and ultimately approve the IGA with DuPage. And my reasoning for that is in case there are extenuating circumstances where we're transitioning employees, or if we have an employee and they're on some sort of leave, we could still receive help from DuPage. I let them know of the situation. They are okay whether we outsource everything or we outsource just on occasion. So, with that, I'll leave it up for comments and questions from the board.
I think the big stickler for me is the outsourcing requiring the residents to visit DuPage Township for interviews and such. I mean, if they're looking for general assistance, I don't know how easy it is for them to get transportation to somewhere else or take that much extra time
Right.
out of their day.
Yeah, I agree, which is why, considering the cost, technically they're a little bit lower to have them in-house, but unless outsourcing applications was significantly lower, I agree that I think general assistance should be in-house in the township, especially for that reason. Because I will say that from the people that do come into the office, you know, the majority of them are on this side of the bridge. So asking them to travel to the DuPage Township office, especially when many may be in a time of need where that's not possible or poses a challenge, you know, it wouldn't be the best situation. So I'd still like us to have, again, a fallback or a leniency for the IGA in case of any exceptions in the future. But I agree that we should hire someone. The trick is that it is very difficult to find folks to work part-time and work at an hourly rate. And then general assistance, because it's social work, it's a niche skill. So we've been getting a person here or there for the other part-time positions, and even then the group that we're attracting are folks who have retired and they're just looking for something to do, and pay is even their concern. But for GA being like a very special skill set or requires a social work background, I'm not sure if we'd have the same luck. I was thinking I could put out 2 job descriptions, one for part-time GA and one for full-time, but then we'd have to fill 4 part-time positions. So that's the only trick. My idea would be that tomorrow I could put out a job description. We could, one, put it on the website, but we could also just post it on Indeed. I recently started doing that for the part-time positions. So.
Have we reassessed all our current employees in the office and that they've got enough work to keep them busy, or anybody might be interested in maybe transitioning from what they're currently doing, and maybe this is of more interest where their position might be easier to fill? Sure.
So 2 answers to that. So one, in terms of work that they have to do, certainly enough. So I want to be careful with what I say, but for the 2 weeks that I worked general assistance, though we were running a very, very lean operation, it was doable. But then when we had an open or a vacancy on yet another position, which was bus dispatching, the person who was helping me a little bit with GA now has to backfill bus dispatching. So now we're down 3 part-time positions. So there's more than enough work right now to go around. And in terms of if anyone would like to, I guess, swap jobs or do GA instead of their old job, I will say frankly that my staff are not interested on doing a different job unless it reflects the change in their pay, which we can't really do. I don't, considering that the costs are $800 a month, it doesn't make sense for me to pay someone a lot more in general assistance, especially if they have to go through training. It doesn't make sense to give someone an increase in pay if their hours and everything will stay virtually the same.
So by going with a full-time employee, right, with a two job,
Yeah.
the dual job description, they would be full-time, so that would also, other than the $18 an hour, it would take on benefits.
Yes, so 2 things. So one is the way it would work, and I've already discussed this with our accountants on a different conversation, but in terms of how they would be paid, it was they would be paid proportionally, so they would be paid about $800 out of GA. The remaining would then come out of the town fund, which is where that community position was going to get paid out of.
Right.
In terms of benefits, what I will say is that if we look at what our staffing looked like a year ago, is we had 5 full-time positions. So right now we currently have 4. So if we're concerned or thinking about bringing in a person full-time and benefits, what I'd say is we're just filling in a vacancy. We're not creating a new full-time person. We're just back to our benefits that we
I'm
were
not
last
against,
year.
I wasn't against it.
Sure. No, I know. I just wanna
point
clarify.
out that
Yeah, yeah.
That's what we're gonna have to do.
That's a fair point, and I just want to clarify what our staffing looks like. And I would think that the reason we can't attract part-time employees is, one, because of the schedule, but second, likely because there's a
They're
lot of
looking for
benefits.
benefits.
That's my guess. Yeah. I know that was a lot of information. Again, I have more information, and I break down the math pretty well, so I encourage you all to read this. I also will mention, and we can talk about this at a different time, but there is a third case, and this is later down the road, where I mentioned in a previous meeting that there is a program called Visual GA. And Visual GA is a program that many townships use, including many of our neighboring townships. And this is a software program that helps organize and keeps, it organizes all of the cases, keeps them up to date, etc. Has the most up-to-date applications. And so if we looked at the cost, even if we consider the subscription cost, it would actually be about $650. So I don't intend on purchasing Visual GA now or really soon. This is something we can readdress in a couple of months, whether it's something we need or if manual is okay. But I just want to make everyone aware that the math is there, and I encourage you all to read it outside of the meeting.
What's the cost for that virtual?
Sure. So,
Is that on there?
It
yes.
says $1,000 for 12 months, so $83 a month, basically.
Yes. So the thing about Visual GA is it essentially increases the efficiency. You know, it certainly, it reduces the amount of hours that a person would work, essentially, to about half. So if you cut down the hours of reviews, interviews, filing, etc. by 50%, it brings it down to about 31 hours. And then you multiply it by the administrative costs, etc. The administrative cost would be $560, but then you add on the Visual GA, and it adds up to $650. Now, one thing I do want to note, though, is that there is a $5,000 upfront cost. So it's kind of hard to put that in a monthly payment if this is a $5,000 upfront cost. What I suggested in the explanation is we could, I guess, for accounting purposes, divide it over a 4-year term, since that is one full term for an official. And if we did that, it would bring our monthly cost, so to speak, to $754, which is still a little bit less than the other two cases.
So I have a question. The initial investment is $5,000. Does that go towards the $1,000 paid each year, or that's a $5,000 just buy in to participate?
Correct. It's $5,000 just to install the software, etc. And then it's a $1,000 subscription renewal fee every year.
Until you can stop at any time?
Exactly.
Or are you locked into that 1,000, or will there be increases along the way?
Yeah, I don't know. I
Okay.
don't know.
I have a question about, if you combine it into a full-time position, what will that gross salary be per year for that person performing 2 different jobs?
Sure. So it would still be the equivalent of $18 an hour. So we do 18 hours times 32 and a half hours times 52 weeks, whatever that math turns out to be.
You get a number there?
Yes. Okay, because I saw something, okay, the part-time position is $17?
No, so both of the positions would be about 18. So it's tricky in that for the township, the introductory hourly wage for a part-timer is $17. But for a full-timer, the starting wage is $18 an hour. So if we combine this in a full-time position, rather than try to just do the math of $17 an hour here, 18 here, it's because it's full-time, we're just going to do $18 an hour for the 32 and a half hours times 52 weeks.
Is $30,420.
Correct.
You said something about speaking to our financial people. mean, that's not $800. I don't know.
Oh, sure. So when I mentioned that I spoke with accounting, I know previously there's been concerns about paying staff out of two different funds. And so this was, I took this concern very seriously, especially because we're working in this budget and the new budget season is coming up. But I spoke with both our accounting firm, Wilmer Rogers, and then several people at TOI, including Brad Rupert, who's the membership director, and Jerry Crabtree, who's the executive director. And I have a very thorough email that I recall, actually, I only sent it to the clerk, but I can send it to the rest of the team. But essentially, it says that you are allowed to pay employees out of two different funds. Now, if anything, what was explained to me is that we should actually generalize line items a bit more. They were saying that generally speaking, townships should just have a line item called personnel. And it should be one big line item that everyone gets paid out of, because by having all these other line items for all these other positions, you kind of lock yourself in to paying that employee that amount, which is intended, but what if you have turnover, right? Or what if other situations happen? Or what if you have, what if you have a bunch of full-time line items, but then you reduce it down to part-time people and now you can't pay them? So if the intended effect is just payment, then you are allowed to pay people out of payment line items. Obviously, maintenance has to get paid out of maintenance, GA out of GA, but we are allowed to get paid out of two different funds, regardless of if it says full-time, part-time, or there is no indication of the time. The recommendation is for the new budget is that we streamline it. We just call it personnel, and then we're good to go.
So I do have to go back to when you did say $800 out of GA, the remaining would come out of the town fund.
Yes.
So this employee would get $800 from GA every 2 weeks?
Correct.
Because that's a different amount than I think, that's not even.
That's his month.
Yeah, you gotta
Wait a minute.
you gotta then do their.
Is that
their
monthly
payment.
or,
Monthly.
wait a minute, 800 every 2 weeks or 800 monthly? I'm confused.
I'm sorry. So, for sake of the numbers, so for our line items, it could work either way. Like, we have enough in each of the line items to pay this employee what they need to get paid. Now, for accounting purposes, we could do it to agree with the cost-benefit analysis, which is $800 a month, or about $400 per pay period, and then the rest, they would get it paid out of town. And we do have a vacant line item. there.
Right, I just needed to make sure for my notes, it was 800 per month.
Sure.
Okay, it wasn't per pay period. Okay, because when I wrote it, the 800 GA remaining out of town fund, so it's 800 per month, and then the other part of that is out of the town fund. Okay,
Correct.
thank you. Do you have an hour or a day? Do you break it down? 2 days is going to be what you're doing for community engagement, 3 days is what you're doing GA, or how will it be divided, or will
Sure.
it be half day? How will that work?
Sure. So the nature of the general assistance work is it's very difficult to break it down to just say specific days, like say Monday and Friday, because the inquiries, we can call them, whether it's people coming in or phone calls, they come in at
Right.
any business hour.
So you're kind of doing a rough estimate of
Yes.
what
Right.
we
So this
believe
is-
by this.
Yes.
Yeah, and this is changing how,
It's
the
not
previous,
necessarily
this
by
is-
week, it's not gonna get broken down, but
Right.
overall for the course
Yeah.
of the month, let's
Right.
say.
like we can't say, I'm coming in today and this is my job to do GA.
Correct.
Right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
That's
And so
perfect.
what
All
I
right.
will say
Thank
is,
you.
given this analysis and given the temporary worker, our temporary worker is only coming in from 9 to 12. And, maybe they miss a phone call in the afternoon that I will answer and then pass on the next morning. But generally speaking, those 3 hours a day, 4 hours a day, which adds up to 50, 20 hours a week, that's enough to cover GA. So if we need to break this down, and it's 32.5 hours, it would be about half GA, half community engagement. That's the best that I could do to break it down.
But it won't be divided as such, like, hey, I'm only doing GA on these days. That's going to be available as a township. We will offer that whenever okay.
Right.
Because it's important, in my office gets a lot of questions about it, so I'll know that, hey, I do have somebody up there. Okay.
Yeah, and that's the
Perfect.
idea, is this person would be here 9 a.m. to 4 p.m.
Mhm.
They'd be here, and they're working on general assistance, but obviously there's not always going to be a case or a phone call to take on.
Right.
So they'd be doing the community work. But they be here from business hours so that if there is a resident who comes in asking, we'd be able to refer them immediately.
Thank you.
So I like your recommendation. I'm wondering, just for future reference then, about residents, if we do opt for going into Page Township temporarily or occasionally or whatever, is it possible for them to do a Zoom call instead of having to travel? And if they don't have technology to do a Zoom call, maybe they can come into the township and use the Zoom from here, rather than going to DePage, just something to check out.
Right, so I thought of the same thing, and so I think again, my intended benefit is that we have the IGA as kind of like a plan B. So I was thinking for the one-off cases where we don't have a GA worker and we do need to have them to DePage, we could do something like a Zoom meeting and have them come to the office. The thing is that part of the interview is the person bringing in their confidential documents, like Social Security, etc. And so that's kind of hard to show over Zoom. And for security purposes, I wouldn't feel comfortable having that person, having us send it to DePage over email. So I think that's the part where it's tricky.
I know one other thing. We're basically discussing and going through all this because of what has happened in the past with the previous employee, and just trying to figure out this number here because I know that was a big issue, money. So $18 an hour is what the previous employee was making.
Correct.
And they were handling GA and other
Yeah.
duties.
It was approximately half GA, half senior bus dispatching, which also is getting offered to be paid at $18 an hour.
Okay, because like I said, I know we can't go over a whole lot of what we've done in executive session for personnel, but that number, I don't know. So other employees in your office have been given the option of stepping up and taking over this position. Because I know obviously this pay has got a lot to do with what we're discussing right now. And I don't know what your other employees make, if stepping up to doing this would benefit them or not benefit them, or because I know we do have some people that have been there for quite some time and might be familiar with some of this, instead of going through the whole process of hiring somebody, and all that's kind of been looked into.
So what I will say is this: I've briefly gone over it with my employees. And my understanding is, so this $18 an hour, this is an introductory amount that we offer to new full-time employees. So with the exception of a few part-time employees I have that just drive the bus, everyone else in the office gets paid more than $18 an hour. So with my brief discussions I've had with employees is they're not interested on transitioning to a new job unless it pays more. And the best that I could do there is just continue to pay them at the amount that they make. Now I can, given that the board has brought this up, I can formally make an offer to employees and asking, hey, would you like to move to general assistance? Again, I know I have at least one employee that knows a basic amount. It would still require some training. I mean, if that employee said yes, I'd actually be happy to do that because it's a lot easier to onboard someone who takes on regular receptionist work than it is to onboard and hire a general assistance person. So I can make that formal offer, but in terms of pay, the person would get paid the same, any people would get paid the same amount.
And that's our decision, or your decision. I mean, it's not worth saying if you're going to take on new duties, maybe you go to those stipend.
Oh, sure. I mean, I guess, general assistance technically is at the discretion of the supervisor, but I'm not making that as a hard decision. If the board feels that we should pay this position a little bit more, I'm all ears. Like I'm receptive to that conversation if the board feels that.
Well, I'm just looking at, you're talking about hiring a part-timer at $18 an hour, and basically all they're going to do is general assistance.
Well, it'd be hiring a full-timer at $18 an hour, the equivalent, and half is general assistance, half is community/receptionist work.
But right now, you've got a temporary employee that's making $18 an hour and you're just doing general assistance.
Correct.
Okay. So if you had an employee, current employee that is familiar with it, like you said, and possibly would be interested if there was a small stipend. I mean, I'm just saying that this next full-time employee, are we gonna run into the same issue where, wait, now I'm doing this, now I'm doing that, now I'm doing this, I want more money.
Sure.
And like I said,
Your job is.
we kind of ran into a big issue this last time, and just to try to alleviate that, maybe it wouldn't be a bad idea, I don't know. If the board
Well,
has to be involved in
He
that.
does have a job description for the community engagement position that's currently online, but do you have a GA description?
So yeah, that's the thing that I wanted to bring up is that, so the idea would be we combine these two positions, and I actually have the job, like a merged job description, so to
Okay.
speak,
You have
drafted
that?
up. Right, and it's called, I think it's Community Engagement and Social Worker Specialist, and it labels the duties and responsibilities. I think one of the issues before was that it was two separate job descriptions and a person taking on two different jobs. Here it's, we have the full job description, here are your duties. If you would like to apply and be hired, here are the full responsibilities. So I think there's a little bit of difference there. But yeah.
I'm just saying that, so we've got a temporary employee making $18 an hour, now we say, hey, you're done November 22nd. However, we do have a full-time position opening, but it's gonna include more than just GA. Maybe they'll say, well, maybe I should get more than $18 an hour, and then if I put in for it, but you're gonna say, no.
Right, and to clarify, I hired the temporary employee, and I was very straightforward from the get-go, and that's why we have a contract, that they're only here until the 22nd. I haven't offered, and I wasn't intending on offering this full-time position to that temporary employee, and my understanding is this temporary employee is also in between jobs, so I don't even think they'd be expecting to work here full-time. So this would be a public hiring process open to the general public, and we'd have new people applying. So I guess theoretically, the temporary position, the temporary worker could apply, but it's not
Well, I
the
was just kind
expectation.
of using it as an example, not saying
Oh, sure.
that was gonna happen with her. Just generally, somebody could look at it and say, wait, this person is making $18 an hour, they were just doing general assistance. Now you want me to do this community service and all this other stuff. I'm gonna want a little bit more pay. Wouldn't that make sense? And to tell you the truth, I think they would have thought it kind of would have, even in the past. I'm not saying a dollar amount or not, but I guess that's something that you have to decide.
Sure. I mean, I guess this is where I ask to the board, I look to the board then for advice. Do people think that the $18 an hour for a merged job description is fair? Do we think that there is reasoning to increase that amount?
So my question would be real quick, I'm sorry, but if you mention the word social work, then people are gonna think degree, social work, experience, licensed professional. I mean, when I start thinking that, everyone's like, I don't know, and then you see 30,420 for full-time, including both those positions. So I'm thinking a rewording may have to be chosen as well. I don't know, what does everybody think?
Yeah, maybe casework.
General assistance caseworker,
Yeah.
is that technically
because you're
what it
not
should be?
required to have any credentials.
I think depending upon the skill set that you're requiring, even though they'd be entry level here, they've got to come in with some sort of skill sets. I
Right.
don't know how much was involved in doing the newsletter and all that, that you need to know certain programs
Yeah.
to
Right,
draft things. I mean, that's
you do.
a lot different than bringing in a brand new person, like you said, who's just going to answer phones or,
Yep.
you know.
I will say, and I have this in the job description, but, so for the community work, that one I do actually have described as anyone can walk in and do that work. Mainly because it is just phone calls and it is the newsletter, but even then the newsletter doesn't require any design skills. It's just coordinating between other elected officials and then, editing, etc. So that work, that is entry level. Where I guess we would require some background or experience is in general assistance. So general assistance, because it's kind of like a specialized skill set, there's a set amount of guidelines and a set of knowledge you need to know about state benefits and stuff. you know, I guess there's two options. It's either one, someone who has worked in general assistance before, which again, it's a niche skill set, so I don't know how big that applicant pool is. Or second, it's someone with some sort of degree or some sort of education in social work, because then the learning curve would be a lot less steep. So that's where it's a little weird.
It's really nice to have some HR people done.
Yeah, because I don't know, someone with a degree in social work.
Sometimes
take a
the
job for
wordings are,
30,000,
yeah.
They're not gonna do it, are they?
Yeah,
don't know.
and I don't think it's necessary to do that. Yeah, I guess, like you said, it actually would require some research either with TOI or elsewhere on what do people usually pay their general assistance workers. I think our prior full-time person was getting paid a bit more, but she was here for a very long time. So it was more about that than anything else. So I really don't know what that type of position, but technically, other than, you know, being a compassionate person, hopefully, that it's pretty much clerical, right?
General assistance?
Processing the applications and so forth.
So I would say general assistance, one, having worked through it myself, and two, still communicating fairly often with our temporary worker. It's not just clerical work. I'd say there's some very strict guidelines that need to be followed. Like we'll have folks that come in with very tricky cases. So some are as straightforward as, here is the maximum income you can make. You have 3 people in your household, here's the amount financial assistance we can provide. Easy. But quite a few of them are much trickier. There are some where it's like, well, this person's on unemployment and receiving disability, but they also have all of these dependents, but they're also divorced, but they're paying child support. So then you have to take into account all the deductions we have to make. Then you have to consider, is this a recurrent general assistance? Is this an emergency assistance? Do they have an eviction notice? There's a lot of very, you would think they would be edge cases, but they're a lot more common. And the binder for general assistance is, it's like a 500-page book. So I struggle to say that it's just clerical entry-level work when we can't just have anyone walking in and do that job. It requires some sort of knowledge.
But that's where that software could come into help, that you plug things in and it figures out that and doesn't make the human error of missing something unless you forgot to put it in there. To where, I mean, that's just another thought of where somewhere down the line, if you're thinking of it's worth it, if we continue to have a turnover in that, to be able to pull somebody in and be a simple training on a software program
Just for data entry.
versus,
Mhm.
you know, I mean, that's just, again,
Sure,
something
no.
else to think about.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. And I think that's definitely a very reasonable option.
'Cause it generates reports too, doesn't it?
Yes.
Oh, boy, yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, no, and I think the one very nice thing too is what we currently do is, I mean, we're required by law to keep the records and documents of all the people that submit an application, especially if they come in the future and request assistance, either emergency or general, and we just have, what we've been doing is manually keeping it in a file cabinet and
This
relying
probably
on.
has a thing where it's
It's not
attached
secure.
them all.
Exactly.
electronically.
One, it's not secure. Two, you have to rely on memory on, hey, did this person come in 2 years ago to receive help? Because we're only allowed to give help within a certain amount of time period, with a certain time period. And with this software program, we would let you know, hey, by the way, this person applied 8 months ago, 10 months ago. Here is all of their files, here's their documents.
Alex, is there a salary study from TOI or Torma for Illinois
And in regards to general assistance?
in regards to
All of our
employees in
positions.
general? To see if we're competitive or.
Oh, sure. I would need to look into that. I would need, and that's a really good point.
Because then you're not starting from scratch, you know, just kind of
Right.
throwing darts. You've got benchmarks.
Did you say lawn darts?
Hmm?
Did you say lawn darts?
So these are probably a lot of good questions to ask at the conference.
Conference, yeah.
I know there's a lot of TO, there's a lot of GA.
Yeah, I was gonna say, one of the classes is an all-day class on GA, which I already registered for, so. Yeah, there is that, so it sounds like there's a lot of, a lot of advice that I appreciate from the board, a lot of input, so. Yeah, this might be something that I just have to think about the next few days and then.
Well, the
update
nice thing is
board on.
there's a lot of options. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not, you're not
That's
pigeonholed into
And-
one thing. It's nice to have some options.
Right, and that's why I also, because I knew this would be complicated, that's why I opted to have the temporary worker here until the 22nd, which is the day before Thanksgiving,
Mhm.
just so we have a little bit of a timeline. So, okay.
So did we vote to approve this yet? or
No, you have not.
I didn't think we need a vote, it's,
You need to.
you've got money
I'm not
in
making-
its line item
Right.
for salary for this.
Right, I was
You're
gonna say.
just looking for our
Even
Input.
if they're
Correction.
not.
Yeah, no, there doesn't need to be a vote on this.
On the IGA?
Oh, yeah, on the
But
IGA,
she's
yes,
got
but that's
it.
different. But I meant in terms of potentially hiring someone. If we have a line item, we're good.
The IGA,
Yes.
remember the.
Okay, so just to recap, there's quite a few good questions that I need to ask and look into. So I'll look into it the next couple of days and send the board an update over email, hopefully in the next several days as well. That does, moving on to go to new business. This goes back to my proposal of simply just having the IGA with DuPage Township just as a potential fallback. The resolution is included in the packet. Essentially, all this says is that DuPage, they would complete our applications at a rate of $50 an application. They will only process our applications upon our appointment, meaning they're not going to automatically do our applications. We have to let them know, hey, please do this application. They'll charge us $50. And this resolution is valid up from 1 year from the 21st of November. So we would need to reapprove the resolution, I think November 22nd of next year. I will also note that Wheatland Township, which is the direct neighbor of DuPage, has this exact IGA with DuPage. Though also their township, its office is significantly smaller. So for them, it makes sense to outsource their GA because they get one application every 2 months.
Yeah, I don't like the idea of the IGA personally.
Okay. Right. My idea again is just so we have some sort of backup plan, like if there is or let's say if it's been 2 months and we still don't have a GA person, and there's just no way myself, my other staff can complete this GA application, we'll ask DuPage, can you please process this application? And then we'll make some accommodation for the resident, whether it's Zoom or something. Or maybe we have the DuPage person come down to the office just that one time. So I have this written over email communicated to DuPage that this IGA would just be used for exceptions, but my intention is to hire someone to complete GA. Any other thoughts? All right, hearing none, could I entertain a motion to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with DuPage Township?
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion by Karen Johnson. So I will second that motion. Madam Clerk, can I please have a roll call?
Sapien,
Yes.
Morelli,
No.
Fickus,
No.
Johnson,
Yes.
Salvino.
No.
The agreement, the motion does not carry. The motion fails. Okay. I have no other items for new business and general assistance. Do we have any final thoughts or questions from the board? All right, hearing none, can I entertain a motion to adjourn the general assistance meeting, please?
I'll make that motion.
A motion by Karen Johnson,
I'll second.
a second by Ms. Salvino. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving. Yeah.
We'll see for the